Clara Ogunshemi. I am visionary for Job Business Network of Canada. It's a nonprofit organization that supports immigrants, usually immigrants that have been in Canada 10 years or less in their
Okay.
career and entrepreneurial journeys. So the whole idea of our nonprofit is to just support, provide resources, counseling or coaching to immigrants and individuals, students, professionals, working professionals, seeking employment. Advise them on their career transitioning,
Okay.
and as well as also people that are interested in running a business. And so that is the topic of discussion for today. What is it like running a business in Canada? So, so today, this is actually the first of our video
Serious?
series.
That's
We've had this planned for like 2 years or
I
almost
know, I know, I know. 2 years,
years.
I know.
Yeah,
I
and I'm
know.
so happy that we are finally able to get it going. So let me read your biography. Thank you so much for joining us
That
here.
sounds interesting. Okay, drum roll. Let's hear what that sounds like. Drum roll.
Drum roll. Okay, so I have here our guest today is Eugenia Ogundare. He is the CEO of the Cake Isle Inc. It's over 5 years now in Canada. She's got so many other businesses. She's a serial entrepreneur, just like I.
Ah,
so so going right into her bio, let me see if I have it here. Just a moment. Um, okay, a brief bio about our guest today, Eugenia Ogundare. She is the founder of Elora Beauty Inc. and Cake Isle Inc. She
mhm.
holds a master's in electronic commerce, a bachelor's of science in economics, and she's a certified trichologist practitioner,
Practitioner. Yes.
a business mind who finds innovative ways to prefer solutions in the culinary and beauty industry. Eugenia Ogundare prides herself as someone who has mastered the art of turning her passion into a source of livelihood. She loves to mentor and share her journey with entrepreneurs who are building their businesses in Alberta, Canada. When she's not building her businesses, Eugenia Ogundare is spending time with her husband and three children, cooking, catching up on TV series, shopping, and traveling.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're so honored to have you
Thank
here
you,
today.
Clara. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, maybe you could just start by telling us about yourself. Like, get
Mm.
started saying that, talking about
So would
that.
that be on the personal side or the
Just whatever. Let's just make it informal. Just whatever is.
informal? I would say I'm the youngest of four girls.
Oh, okay.
Yes, from a family of six, so four girls and two boys. I'm the youngest of four girls, and I think if my sisters were here today, they will actually say, yeah, Gina is spoiled. They've always kind of referred to me as the spoiled one. So it's funny how it turned out for the one, the one who everyone thought was spoiled and soft and all of that to be this person I am now in Canada. And
Wow.
if when I graduated from uni, I went to LASU, my first degree was in LASU, Lagos State University. And if
Okay.
anyone had said, given me a crystal ball to say this is who you'll be in the next 20 years, I'd be like, nah, that doesn't sound anything like me at all. So it's funny because the person I am now doesn't really reconcile with the person I would say I used to be or the person I thought I was.
Hmm.
It's completely different.
Wow.
I didn't see this coming. That much I will say. I didn't see this coming. That
Yes,
much I will say.
that happens in life where
Yes.
you just and
All of this right now wasn't part of
sure, but the nice thing is it everything comes together. It comes full
It
circle,
does.
eventually. That's one
It
thing I've
does, I would
realized. Yeah.
say. But the picture I had in my head when I was, graduating and getting married was a 9 to 5 career, let's just do this.
Mm,
But it didn't really turn out that way because I got married.
mm,
My husband is in oil and gas, and straight after marriage, we just started hopping around from place to place. So I never really had that stability, so to speak, to be in one place long enough to build a career.
mm.
So even at that, though, still, this wasn't what I thought was going to be happening. So it
Wow.
just kind of fell into place, I would say, without really me thinking much about it or planning for it. It just kind of
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, those things happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us more about your background? Like, how did you come to Canada? I mean, like, so our target will be people that are coming from other parts of the world and just finding themselves in Canada. Maybe they're working 9 to 5 and they're looking for an opportunity to go into entrepreneurship, maybe run their business and maybe do it on the side, as lots
Yeah.
of companies now are
Yeah. I think
have.
we moved to Canada 2014. I
Mm,
remember. And I think what kind of prompted the move at the time, we were in the UK when the work permit process came through, and we had just spent, I think, 5 years in Angola. We're coming up to, I think, maybe year 4 or year 5 in the UK, and my husband had been transferred or was being transferred to Trinidad. So this came through, and I'm thinking, I really don't want to do this anymore. The kids need some such stability. I
mm,
just can't keep. So I would say the work permit thing kind of came out at the right time. So as he was leaving to Trinidad, the kids and I moved here. And just as we're moving here, I found out I was pregnant for my third because I already had the boy and the girl. So I found out I was pregnant for my third. So coming here, prior to when I found out I was pregnant, I was looking at events planning, events management, and I'd looked at Bow Valley. I had applied, I was going to start the course. So that was what I was actually working towards, going to Bow Valley, study, excuse me, study, get a degree in event planning and management. And, but then I found out I was pregnant. So I remember when I sent an email to the coordinator at the time saying, okay, we are in Canada as I, said we would be, but I
mhm.
just found out that I'm pregnant. So I would like to defer my admission. And I remember I remember
And
her
it's still deferred till today, right?
her email said, I think with your unique circumstances, we just put your admission on hold pending when you decide. So that was 2014. And I just
Uh,
didn't go back to it. I
yeah.
just didn't go back to it because with the other two, I was a stay-at-home mom. And the only reason I was thinking about going to Bow Valley was just, the kids were old enough to be in school full time.
Mhm,
So it was kind
mhm,
of like my me time. It was time for me to do me. You know, I was here with the kids alone. My husband was, shuttling back and forth from Trinidad at the time. So it was just something that would work. So when I found I was pregnant, I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. So I just kind of put it on hold. And I just never went back to it.
yep, those things happen.
Yeah, I never went back
Those
to it.
things happen. Those things happen. Okay, so now so maybe you can tell us about how the whole idea of Cake Isle and the Elora
Rare
Beauty
beauty, right?
that came about, and how was the concept, the ideation, and coming up with the idea for
Yeah.
the business.
So for Cake Al, it wasn't planned. Again, I say that not with the businesses, none of it was like a pre-planned, this is what I'm gonna do. So for Cake Al, it was funny because I've always baked cakes. I bake cakes at home. My sister, I actually made my wedding cake. My sisters and I made my wedding cake. So we've
Mm,
always kind of baked at home. I know how to make cakes and chin chin. Yes, I make chin chin at home for my kids. But then
mhm,
when we moved to Calgary, like I said, I was pregnant, and you know how time consuming and labor intensive chin chin can be. So the times
mhm,
that I couldn't make it for the kids, there was really nothing out there that they liked. The
mm,
African store did have some, of course, there's chin chin out there, but they wanted mine. and there was nothing like mine out there really. So we
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
played around with the idea that should we not. So when my daughter, the youngest, just over one, and I'm thinking that okay, I need to go back to doing something. What can I do? I don't want to go for back. I don't want to start thinking of a 9 to 5 or going to school. So I decided to resurrect my cake business. So 2015, I had a cake tasting. I just had, different flavors of cakes and cupcakes and icing. And I invited friends because I was pretty new in Calgary at the time anyway. And I
Mhm.
invited friends over, friends of friends of friends. I just had people come over to just taste that this is what I do. So the next time you're having a party or whatever, think
Mhm.
about me. And I did have the chin chin at the side as well. I had
Mhm.
maybe I think on that day I had maybe 10, 8 to 10 flavors. Funny
Yeah.
thing, I was just looking as I was getting ready for this, I was just looking at the pile up there, and it was the actual survey from the cake tasting. And I'm thinking I should hold on to this. So I was looking at everyone's comments with all the flavors, saying the ones they like
Mm.
best. I was actually just looking at that 5 minutes ago. So I remember Ima was here, a friend of mine, Ima, she was here. And as she was leaving, she said, look, I don't know what your plan is, but I think you have something going on with this. Everyone bakes cakes in Chin Chin. Everyone bakes cakes in Calgary. I really think you should run with this whole Chin Chin thing, so just think about it. So it was at that point I started taking the courses, the health courses to get certified. I started finding the kitchen to be approved and, finding a
Mm.
food worker. And then I reached out to a graphic designer. That was kind of when, so there was no, that was when we started taking, okay, what do we need first? Okay, we need to have an approved kitchen. We need to be licensed. And then we got that. Okay, what do we need next? Okay, we need packaging. Okay, how do we package it? We need a graphic designer. Okay, so we'll find a graphic designer. So it just kind of went. So there was no plan. There was no list of, so I really didn't know what to do. I'll be honest. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anyone who had done it that I could say, okay, let me ask. I had no clue. I made so many mistakes along the way because, again, I had no clue what I was doing. I just kind of kept trying different things. Okay, this worked, it doesn't work. And I know one thing they will teach you in business school, or business mentors will tell you, will be to working out your price point and trying to figure out. So I think that's one of the, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, because when we built the recipe, again, it is the same recipe that I used to make for my kids. So the recipe wasn't built for you know
Huge
commercialization.
crowd.
Yes,
Commercial.
it wasn't built for that. So
Mhm.
right from the bat, my production cost was way too high, because
Hmm.
I would use the finest. I would use whole milk from Safeway. I wasn't really doing the no name brand thing. So eventually, when I had a mentor, that was the first thing he said. He
Hmm.
said that, okay, your production cost is way too high. But
Right.
I don't regret that. Really, I don't regret that. I don't
Mhm.
regret trying to alter the recipe to make it cheaper. I don't, because
Mhm.
I think that is why we've lasted this long. Because one of the things I do get, I'll be honest, which I'm so thankful for, is when anyone tries my chin chin, they say, I've never had anything like that before. So one thing I always say is, whatever I put out there is the same. If it's not good enough for my kids, I can sell it. It's just something that I work by. If it's not good enough for my family to eat, I can't. And then this whole African mentality. We don't weigh things, we just kind of eyeball it. So you
Mhm.
just
Mhm. Mhm.
so having a recipe was very challenging, because all the
Wow.
times I used to make it for the kids, I would just kind of eyeball. But now we had to have a proper recipe, because we had to take it to the lab for testing. We
Mhm.
had to have the nutritional panel. And I remember it was I think it took about a week. My husband, God bless him, we would try one batch, and it would be like, okay, this doesn't, because now we had to wait. I know when you eyeball things is different.
Mhm.
So we'll
Mhm.
try one batch and I'll be like, okay, this has way too much butter in it. And we'll write it down, put less butter, and we'll try it again. Okay, this has too much flour. This has too much. Bit tricky. It was a bit, I would say it was a bit tough trying to figure that out. But eventually we
Mhm.
did, a couple of
Sure.
trial and errors, and wasted a
Mhm.
lot of ingredients, but we were able to kind of come up with a base, which is what we still have now. So I would say that was the birth of Cake Al. And I remember the year we did that, we kind of went, we had I remember the year we had that. It's just funny thinking about that now, that you see how far you've come. Then the orders were coming in 1 kilo of strawberry, 1 kilo of ginger, 1 kilo of vanilla. But now, looking back now, I look at a typical production day and I see how much we produce. Is just,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, the recipe came together eventually. Yeah.
Awesome, amazing story. And then the Allura beauty, how did that come?
So Eliora Beauty, Eliora, my second child, my first daughter, she was
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed with sickle cell at birth.
Okay.
And we moved to Calgary 2014, and the
Mm-hmm.
whole trying to get registered with the family doctor, blah blah blah. So
Mm-hmm.
they referred us to the children's hospital, to the hematology department, where they
Mm-hmm.
handle sickle cell cases and all blood disorders. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember them kind of talking to us about a treatment which I had heard about, but I was just very reluctant. I'd heard about the
Mm-hmm.
whole stem cell transplant, but I was still very reluctant. I wasn't sure what the side effects were. I was just not really into it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they started to talk to us about it, showed us the success rate, and we do have a family friend who had gone through the procedure, and it
Mm-hmm.
was quite encouraging to actually hear from them.
Mm-hmm.
So they ran the test and they said, look, we'll figure out if any one of you is a match. That's the first thing. Let's get everyone tested and we'll see what happens. I was still pregnant at the time. So, I remember they ran the test and they came back and they said, okay, good news. Your older son is a match. And I remember the caseworker saying to me at the time that we have patients who come in with six siblings, five siblings, four siblings, and there is no match. So for the patient to have one sibling and that sibling is a match, it's a huge miracle. At that point, I started to see that, okay, this God really has a plan. This is just God's mercy, because you don't know what it is to be. You can't explain what it is to have a sickler child to someone who doesn't have a sickle cell, who doesn't have
Hello.
a child with sickle cell.
Yeah.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
something you can explain.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's only someone who is dealing with that that can truly understand what it is to have a child with sickle cell traits. So
Sure.
it just got me thinking of how extremely lucky we were, honestly, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, because there are so many people out there who are still trying to find a solution and they don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the process started, they ran all the tests, and part of the treatment was she had to go through chemo, obviously, to break down the immune system for them to introduce the stem
Mm-hmm.
cell in. And I know one of the concerns she had was her hair. And I said, don't
Mm-hmm.
worry, we'll pray about it. There's nothing God can do. So there was a part of me that was very afraid that, oh, after we've prayed and the hair continues to, or the hair still falls out, is that going to
Mm-hmm.
affect her faith? Is she going to stop believing in God, saying that I prayed?
Mm-hmm.
So there was that fear. I still had that fear, that because I said, don't worry, let's just pray about it. Everything is going to be fine. In
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, now what I should have said was, even if it falls out, it's still going to be okay. But at the time, I
Yep.
just said, don't worry, we'll pray about it, blah, blah, blah. And
Sure.
then we had the we had the chemo.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, she had cornrows going in, and it still looked okay. So she was discharged a couple of months later, and it was time to actually have the first hair wash after the whole treatment. And I remember as we were taking it out, the hair was just, it was just coming out in chunks. It was
Mm-hmm.
coming out in chunks. I'm like, oh my God, please don't. We prayed about this. We prayed about this. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember because she was in isolation, so she couldn't really go out to her regular hairdresser. So I
Mm-hmm.
had the hairdresser come in. Then it wasn't even COVID or anything, but she had to wear mask and gloves and everything. Laura. And Laura came in, she looked at the hair and she was like, I don't know what I meant to do with this, because literally she had patches everywhere, but we're still hell-bent on holding the head together. So we tried to bunch it up, we tried everything, but it just wasn't working. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
it was a Saturday. I said to her that we'll just start afresh. It's no big deal. She had reached the end of her isolation period, because she was in isolation for 100 days, a little over 3 months. So she was
Mm-hmm.
going back to school. And I remember her fear at the time was, what will people say?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're
Same.
at an age where
Yeah.
identity, where everyone around your house has silky hair, and
Sure.
you're still trying to get them to love the hair they have. They're still trying
Mm-hmm.
to understand, why is my hair so kinky? Why is
Mm-hmm.
it so hard? Why can't I just put it in the ponytail and it's flipping in the wind?
Yeah. Wow.
You're still trying to get them to love that hair.
Yeah.
then they lose the hair.
Hair. Yeah.
She was very, very worried going back to school. She was very self-conscious about it. And I said to her, even me, for me, that was actually a learning experience, that sometimes when you have a situation, it actually helps to prepare your mind, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, I said, look, it's no big deal. When you get to school, yes, they will ask you, but
Yep.
just tell them you are trying a new look. And I said, make sure when you say that, you shrug your shoulders. I said, "Oh, I'm just trying a new look." I said, I said, make sure you shrug your shoulders and say, "Oh, I'm just trying
Yeah.
a new look." So I dropped her.
Smart.
She came back, and a lot of parents reached out to me to say, "Oh, we noticed Elira wasn't in school for a while and now she's back."
Mm.
So a lot of them had cancer, and I was like, "No, she didn't have cancer. We just had to go through this process." And she came back and said, "Oh my God, mom, it actually worked." That, I think two
Mm.
people asked her, "Oh, what happened to your hair?" And she said,
Just
"I just
try.
shrugged my shoulders and said, I'm trying to look." And because I made her see it as not a big deal,
Yeah.
passed on that experience or information as not being a big deal, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone took it as not a big deal. So eventually the day just went and no one made any comments, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It was recess, one or two people asked and she gave the same answer, and it just it just kind of went on. And then I remember a friend called me and said her daughter had asked Zuriel, Eliora's brother, saying, "Oh, what
Mm-hmm.
happened to your sister?" And my son's response was, "Oh, it's personal. I can't talk about it." So she called me saying, "I have to say that was quite impressive." I have to
Yeah, it's personal. Yeah.
so
But the
we
learning experience for the kid
yeah, and
too.
he just said, it's personal. I don't want to talk about it. And she was like, "I have to
Yeah.
do it." My daughter backed up. That was quite impressive. So I said, "No, Zuriel was just being sensitive. It's no big deal." So we
Yeah.
crossed that hurdle, and it was now how to get the hair to grow. I'm
Grow.
not a science student. I didn't do well in chemistry or biology. I was a social
Hmm.
science student. I had nothing to do with formulation and chemistry and all of that. But when life happens, I started to research, I started to read up, what butters are good
Mm-hmm.
for 4C hair, what oils, what, moisture. We started to read up, the whole rice water protein treatment. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much information out there. So again, it was a case of, let's start with something at home. Okay, we have mango butter at home because yes, my kids and I, we all have dry skin, so we always I've always kind of done the butter mix up thing for them. And okay, we have mango butter at home. Okay, let's try and get this oil. Let's try and buy that oil. So kind of went for just things you find around the house, and
Mm-hmm.
we started playing around with the formulation, and they started working. The hair started growing. It was coming out thicker. It was coming out, more density. So we did that for a while. And I remember, I remember when the hair started to grow, the first hairdresser I took her to, who used to do her hair before the transplant, said to me, "What did you do?" I'm like, "We just wanted the hair to grow back." So when it started growing back, it grew back so thick, so thick. We started thinking of texturizing. That was how thick it
Mm-hmm.
was. It would
Wow.
try to comb it and the combs would break. So I don't know how to cornrow hair or braid hair. I don't know how to do any of that. But I know how to take care of, and I think people get that confused sometimes when they meet me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't braid your hair, I can't cornrow my hair. I don't know how to do it, but I can tell you what to do to help your hair to grow. So people always get that confused with me. And she was like, "What did you do?" I said, "Nothing. We're just trying to get the hair to grow back healthy." And a friend of mine who used to do her hair said to me that, "Gina, I'm not going to touch that hair. That hair is going to give me arthritis. I'm sorry. There's no way." He said, "There's no way I'm going to touch that." And, the product started working. So a friend walked to, doing,
Yeah.
Adonia Beauty.
Yeah.
She was the one who said, "Gina, you can't just sit down on Ellie's experience.
Mm.
You have to share that. And you have to understand that coming from Nigeria, we have this African mentality of, shh, don't tell anybody, just keep
Yeah.
it to
Yeah.
yourself."
Mm.
So when Eliora was actually diagnosed with sickle cell, we didn't tell anybody. It was just my
Mm.
husband and I that knew. We didn't tell any sibling. We didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my parents. So I remember when it was time for the transplant, the hospital insisted we had to have, they referred to it as outside external support. So they
Mm.
said someone else had to be in the house because it was going to be intense. So we needed someone. And that was when I called my parents and I told
Wow.
them. Elera was 8.
Yeah.
I called my parents and I told them, Elora has sickle cell. She has always had sickle cell, but this is what my dad was like. So you have to understand that for starters, it was a case of how could you guys do this? How could two carriers get married? But that's a story for another day.
Another day.
That's a story for another day. My
Yeah.
parents were like, how could you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Questions do come up. Even now, I do get attacks from people. Did you know?
Mm.
If you
Mm.
knew, why did you? But again, that's a story for another day.
Another day, yeah.
So my mom came. The family, I have to say, for the first couple of weeks, they were, how could you
We're
not
still in
tell us?
shock, yeah.
Not
Yeah, still
trust
trying
us?
to,
But
yeah.
I would say why we did that, I'll be honest, why we did that was it's hard for you to deal with other people's doubt when you're
Yeah.
struggling with your faith.
Yes.
At that time we were still struggling with holding on to God and trying to believe that everything. So we just could not deal with other people's. And again, I didn't want the stigma attached to her, the stigma that comes with it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want her to be treated differently.
Mm-hmm.
So even when my mom came and I know we're talking about something. I was scolding Elira for something, and my mom said, "Oh, don't talk to her like that. She's been through a lot." And I said, "That is exactly why I didn't tell you. That is
Yeah.
exactly why we didn't tell you because I don't want her to be treated any differently."
Yeah.
Elira is very strong-willed. I remember when she had an episode back in the UK, and the teachers were wondering. She just went to school and she just fell on the floor and she was screaming and crying in pain. And one teacher said she recognized the symptoms. So that was when we had to tell them that. So she had a crisis at school, and that was
Mm.
when the teacher. And we had to tell them that yes, Eliora has sickle cell. She's a sickle cell patient and all of that. And I remember the head teacher saying to me, don't take this the wrong way, but if this has to happen to any of your children, it has to be Elora because she's the stronger one, which
Mm.
is funny, because every child is different. So
Yeah.
we did that, and when the hair, so Doyin was like, Gina, you can't
Sit
just,
on
you
this, yeah.
have to share this one. The hair products are working, and there are people out there who don't even know that,
Mm-hmm.
procedures like this actually exist. You can't just sit down on it.
Sure.
Fine. So we decided to bring the product out. And again, like similar to what happened with KCAL and the price point, it was a bit high. And the reason for that is when we put it together, we were not planning to sell it.
Tell it, yep.
Something that would work. So
Sure.
we change the formulation now that we know that works because we're trying to find something cheaper. No, this
Mm.
is what we use. This is what gave us the result. So we'll put it out there. And I remember when it was World Sickle Cell Day, I would say maybe 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put up a photo of Eliora. And then I wrote the tribute saying this is what she had gone through. I'm horrible with social media. So I think there was something with that post. A lot of people wanted to share it, but they could not. So and I didn't, it wasn't something I did intentionally. I'm not just sure how it was posted, but so many people wanted to share it, but they couldn't. So that was the first time I actually came out saying this is
Mm.
what Eliora has had, this is what she's been.
Sure.
And I got so many phone calls from friends and family members. They were like, "Are you kidding me? How did that
Mm.
happen? Elira had sickle cell." And that was when we started talking about it. We started, I got a few emails, a few DMs maybe, but not a lot. But then we decided to launch Elira Beauty, and the team at the time talked about an explainer video saying you have to explain what Elira Beauty is about. That was the first time we actually spoke about it. We talked about it. It's on Instagram. I think it's on. We tried to put it on the website, but it was so heavy. So it's on Instagram, on the Instagram page, and we put that on IG. And wow, it was shared so many times.
Sure.
It was
Sure.
shared many times. There are people who still do not know that both stem cell transplants is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to make time for people, for fellow warriors or parents of warriors. I try to make time for them. So if I get a DM saying, "Oh, I saw your daughter's video," that's usually an opening for me. I just drop everything and I make sure I read the whole message. And I connect with people who say, "Oh, um, my I have two kids. One is a match, but I was told that if that one is a carrier as an AS, a carrier cannot donate." I'm like, that's not true. A
Mm.
carrier can't donate if there's a match. Or they go, "Oh, I heard, kids can't do it." Again, I'm like, that's not true. So there's so much information out there that
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much wrong information out there. So I
Mm-hmm.
just spent a lot of time talking to people about it, just trying to encourage them. I remember I was talking to a mom about taking a medication. They kind of put you on a medication, hydroxyurea. And I was talking to a mom about that, and she was very reluctant. She said, oh, she heard that, children who take the medication, they kind of grow up and they're not able to have kids. And I paused and I looked at her and I said, it's only the child that is alive that can go on to have kids.
Mm.
And she said, you are right.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, they tell you, oh, I give it to her, but I don't give it to them all the time. When Eliora was on that medication, it was very strict. I had the timer on my phone, 7 p.m. every day. So hearing someone say, oh, I don't give it to her all the time, I'm like, really?
Mm.
And I remember when I came here, that medication was offered to me. I was saying to the doctor that I've never heard of it. We spent 5 years in the UK and that medication was never offered. And the doctor was like, no, they have it there. I say it was never mentioned. So for you in Nigeria to actually have access to that and you're not taking advantage of it, it was just, kind of weird for me. So that was kind of how Illyria Beauty started. We did the launch, we started to sell the product. But more than anything, I don't want the products to get I don't want Eliora's story to be lost in the hype of the products that work. I
Yeah.
really want that to happen. So every opportunity we have, we talk about it. Recently, early this
It
year, I
was
think about
on TV. I saw.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the local news did an interview on her.
Laura is 15 now or 14?
She's 15. She's
15.
gonna be 16 this year. She's gonna
Yes.
be 16 this year. So and of course, I think even for her too, I sometimes I see the
Mm.
pressure of, and that's something I am hoping to be able to deal with as we go on with this. I see the pressure of fitting into the stereotype of you are selling hair products or you're promoting hair products, so you should always carry your natural hair. She's a teenager, she wants to try things, she wants to do things. So sometimes it's that pressure of leaving your hair out so people can see. So I
Mm-hmm.
also have to remind myself that it's not just about the product, but the journey that she went through, what she's trying to, the messages, the stigma she's trying to remove from, the whole sickle cell thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how Elora Beauty.
Amazing story, amazing story. So you have two businesses, one that was born out of just
Necessity. Both.
thank you so much for sharing that story. That is the key things I want to highlight there is there were two necessities and you pretty much met those necessities, even though it was just for your family. But this has become products, two products that you now share with the country, pretty much. I just want to know. So, and also there were other things you mentioned there in terms of like um, even though you didn't have that experience in the sciences or you had not run a business before, you were very particular about getting the business license. You were particular about doing the right things and setting laying the foundation for the business. I think that those are two things to really
Yeah,
in conversations.
yeah.
How important is that, and how has that helped you today? Do you think that they have been
It
instrumental
was
in
hard.
building
It was hard,
sales?
I would say. It was hard, I would say, because I remember, like I said, if you remember, I just had the cake tasting and we
Yeah.
had talked about making it a business. And
Mm-hmm.
to get the license, you need a
Yeah.
kitchen. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. So you go and
Mm-hmm.
you do you find the kitchen first, and then they
Mm-hmm.
tell you, okay, you need to have your food handler's license and blah blah blah. So you go and you take the courses, and they tell you, okay, we need to come inspect your kitchen, and then we'll give you your license. So I did that, and they inspected the kitchen. So I remember that at the time it was a monthly lease I had to sign, and it was
Sure.
$750 a month then.
Mm-hmm.
It was $750 a month. So I just started a business. I wasn't selling anything. I just needed a place to produce my chin chin. And already my overhead was $750 a month. So I remember I had to write, post-dated checks. So every month, if you like, you come, you don't come, you don't sell, we'll cash the check, so that registering
Mm-hmm.
the business, opening a corporate account, getting it incorporated, all of that. Now, when
Mm.
that happened and we started producing, we needed to work on the nutritional panel. And I had two options when I started searching for companies online. I had two options. And one said we can estimate, would just kind of say, okay, give it a rough estimate to say this is how much oil is left when you're done frying. This is how much, so it gave me an option that, okay, weigh the chin chin before frying and then weigh it after frying. I should actually try that and see, weigh it before frying and then weigh it after frying and see how
Yeah.
much weight, how much difference there is. That will tell you how much oil is retained. And I was like,
Mm.
I don't know. So I approached this company and they said that we would have to. So they said, first of all, you have to prepare a fresh batch, send
Mhm.
it to us, and then we'll test it from the day it arrives, and then
Mhm.
test it 1 month after, and 3 months after, and 6 months after, and 12 months after. Of course, the Nigerian mentality, that, okay, chinchin doesn't really expire, but I had to do all of that. So it was in the lab for about 18 months, and I had to pay for storage, and every time it was, because it had to be, I had to send it to them in the package, and I intended to sell it in.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was the key thing. I had to send it to them in the package and internet to set. So they came back and they gave us at some point at 18 months, I just told them to stop testing because I wasn't really willing to take it any further. There's no point. I don't intend to hold on to changing for 2 years, right? So at 18 months, I just told them to stop testing, and then they sent us all that paperwork. So I remember when, I would go for meetings and they would be like, oh, how did you get your panel? Do you have the information? I think half the time they expected me to say no. So every time I open my email to say, yes, I can forward the information to you, I actually got that, surprise look. So I don't regret doing that because I think, whether we like to believe it or not, there is an expectation that,
Mhm.
immigrants, I don't want to say black people, but I think immigrants tend to not follow things through. We
Mhm.
don't really do things properly. The standard is
Yeah.
a little bit low when it comes to immigrants. And I really wanted to prove that yes, I'm a Nigerian. Every time you hear about Nigerians out there, it's really not the best, but something good can come out of us.
Yeah.
That was actually something else I have to say because every time, you talk about Nigeria comes up on the news, the kids are always like, it's always negative. It's
Mhm.
well, half the time it is negative. Let me not say it's always
Yeah.
negative. I really wanted to just try and do something that can be tied to Nigeria as a country, and it won't be bad. So I really didn't want to put anything out there that won't be good enough. And
Mhm.
when I mentor people, that's what I tell them. I'm not going to help you cut corners because I don't know how to do that. It's either it's good enough or it's good enough. There's no, in between.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, and
Well.
now with Era Beauty, like I said, I'm not a chemist.
Mhm.
I didn't study chemistry. So now with Elira Beauty, what we did, when the demand got to, we did get the right paperwork, to manufacture at home and all of that with Health Canada. We did all of that. But as we grew, I kind of moved it to a chemist. So what I
Mm.
did, I added my formulation to a chemist and I said, just make sure everything is fine, make sure there's not going to be any reaction, just make sure. And the thing
Um.
is,
Mhm.
it is expensive to do things like that, I would say. It's
Mhm.
easier for me to go online and estimate the nutritional panel. It's easier. There are easier and cheaper ways to do most of the things that I did. But I
Mhm.
took the more demanding road for a reason. And I
Mhm.
don't regret that because it has paid off. I see I go
Yeah.
for trade shows. Back then when we used to do trade shows and someone would pick up the pack of chinchin and they will say, oh, I'm diabetic and it has the right amount of sugar that I need. So if I
Mhm.
just put some information out there that wasn't truly the bet, yeah. So,
Sure. 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 Please show us a packet of your have it handy or any
actually,
of your
I actually have one
products.
here in my office. Yeah.
Yeah. So she makes
This is the snack
Snake Eye
size.
has chin,
This is the snack
coconut,
size.
cappuccino, coffee chin,
Yeah.
and other flavors. You have vanilla, lemon, uh,
Lemon.
all of that. And then what about
We might have more. Spoiler alert. We might have more. Let's see. As the year
yeah,
unfolds, let's see. We're
yeah. And
cooking some.
one thing I like about it is you can make it with your yogurt. I mean, and
Yes. Ice
hopefully
cream.
yes, you can even maybe we can start having it on the on airplanes on air flights.
We're working on that.
Yes,
In-flight
so that's
snacks, we're working on that.
Yeah, well done, well done, well done. Let's talk about Canada and their support. Like a lot of these things, did you find by Googling it or by networking and talking to people, or Canada just has all the resources available for you
I
to
think it's getting, I would say it's getting better.
mm,
It's getting better. It's getting better, I would say. But initially,
sure.
when I started, I think those were the few things that I would say really I found frustrating. I
Mm,
just feel like I just didn't think I was being encouraged to continue, if that's the
mm,
right way to put it. I just didn't think I was getting the right support, and I do get questions like that even now. Why are you not in the stores? And the
yeah.
feedback back then was that it was too ethnic, it was too niche, it's too blah blah blah. And I just didn't think it had to be. I still think that, and I didn't think it had to be restricted to the African store.
Mhm,
I don't think
mhm,
chin chin should be restricted to the ethnic stores because
yeah.
it's been around for so long. I think chin chin is as good as the British shortcake or shortbread or the US, chocolate chip, and that's actually why I started out like this, because I do think chin chin should be further than it is now. I
Mm-hmm.
still think that it's not where I want it to be.
Yeah.
It's still very much an African snack, and that's something I'm slowly. I don't want to say I'm coming to terms with it, but it's something I'm slowly adjusting to in terms of reality. Because
Mm,
after doing this for 7 years, I have to say it's the Africans, the Nigerians that have kept me in business. So as much as
mm,
I've tried to push it into,
okay.
the the Caucasians, I've tried to incorporate that. It hasn't really worked, and I do get that people are actually surprised in the commercial space that I work. You
Mm,
meet different companies there, and they're like, "Oh, where do you sell this?" I'm like, "Online," and I see that look, really, and you are still in business. Yeah, so shout out to my Nigerians. They have kept me in business. They have, and I do appreciate them. I would say initially, I'll be honest,
mm,
initially, I'm sure if you dig up some interviews from my year one, year two, I would say Nigerians gave me a hard time. They did.
mm,
Nigerians gave me a hard time. They weren't very accepting. And I was
mm,
naive enough going into this thinking everyone would see that, it's not just a me thing, it's something I'm trying to do for all of us as a community. So they weren't very receptive initially. There were some statements that really hurt. So I'm sure
mm,
you will take up some interviews in my first 1, 2, 3 years where you will hear me say, Nigerians were not as supportive as I expected them to be. But I'm
mm,
looking back now 7 years, and I have to give them shout out because they have kept me here.
mm.
They have kept the wheels turning. I have to say,
Yep.
they have kept the wheels turning. So if I should
Sure.
actually do a short video and give shout out to my
Sure.
Nigerians and say
You can do
yes.
it right here. Shout out to all your
I should,
customers.
yeah, honestly, I'm saying that right now that, initially when I started, yes, you guys gave me a hard time. The comments were quite mean. I would go home and cry. But
Oh,
all in
wow.
all, you guys have kept me here, and I appreciate every single person that has gone online to order, that has gone on Instagram,
Mhm,
that has come for
mhm,
local pickup. I appreciate you guys because honestly, if you guys, I probably would have closed up. I'll be honest. So I would say
mm.
my Nigerian community, they have kept me in business, and I appreciate them. I do. I
Awesome.
do. I'm saying
Awesome.
it now, I do.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Now, when you say that maybe the Canadian maybe the government has not really been supportive, or it's been
You won't, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that because it would seem untrue, unfair. What I would try to explain will be the circumstance that I would say these things happen. So we're thinking of we rebranded at some point 2 years ago, just
Mhm.
around the anniversary. That was where we met. My
Mhm.
anniversary, just around year
Yeah,
5.
yeah, yeah,
We
yes.
only had when we started. We only had the 160 grams, and we had
Okay.
talked about for years how we want, based on obviously customer feedback, how parents wanted this size, and
Mhm.
the 160 grams, something a little bit smaller, portion control. So we had
Mhm.
talked about that for years, but obviously funding. So
Sure.
COVID hit, and I had a co-packer in Edmonton. So for the first 2, 3 years, I used to produce in Edmonton. So we had
Mm.
a co-packer in Edmonton who was helping with that. So COVID hit, he had to close his factory down. So we had to move production down
Wow.
to Calgary. So I think in all of that, equipment got damaged. So we had to buy new equipment. We had to, we're thinking of rebranding this. So we needed funding, so I
Mm.
reached out to so many, I don't want to call names, and
Financial institutions like
yes, but
business
bottom line,
lending.
bottom line was just I didn't qualify. Let's just put it that
Mm.
way. I didn't qualify, and I
What
think
reasons would you not
one of
qualify?
the reasons where I wasn't paying myself.
Okay.
I
Mm.
had no income to declare. And I
Um,
remember one of the conversations where is the business not making enough money for you to pay? And I think that's the first mistake we make as business owners. I wasn't paying myself. So everything was just kind of going into the company. You would sell and you would produce.
investing, you're
I was just kind
investing.
of putting everything back. So I wasn't paying myself. So I didn't have any income to declare. So that was
Hmm.
part of it. So how do you get a loan if you don't have any income to declare? So I'm
Yep.
thinking, yeah, so that was a learning curve for me. So and then with all the handouts the government gave out for businesses at the time, I didn't qualify for any because like I said, I had a co-packer. So I wasn't renting any units. I wasn't
Hmm.
renting any units. I wasn't paying staff because I was just paying the co-packer. So he
Hmm.
was dealing with the overhead. So yeah, let's just say I didn't qualify. So I don't want to say, they were not helpful. I guess I,
Yeah.
I have friends who have reached out to BDC and all of that, and they qualified and it has worked out for them. But I
Hmm.
just didn't qualify. Let's put it that way. So we have come a long way, literally on our own, I would say. We
Sure.
have come
Sure.
a long way. A lot of things were delayed that we wanted to do. A lot of steps were delayed that I wanted to do, but eventually we kind of did. And that's one thing I learned, that when I don't get what I need at that point in time, it doesn't stop it from happening. It just takes longer to happen. But
Longer for it
it
to
does.
happen.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. We've learned a lot so
Yeah.
far about going through the formality of registering your business. I remember
Yeah.
when we were going to register Job Business Network, I reached out to a lawyer who was going to charge me a lot. Then I started just Googling and finding out that I could actually register this nonprofit directly and do all the
Yeah.
paperwork. So at
Paperwork.
the end
It's
of the
just
day, I
work.
paid
Yeah.
$75 versus
Yeah.
$600.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just also learned something from you now. Pay yourself
Yeah.
somehow, have staff that you're paying,
Yeah.
and there are always lessons to learn. I mean,
They are.
like,
And one of the lessons again was the trademark. we
oh
I tried
yes,
to
you
get,
talked about
yes,
that.
I tried to
Yeah.
get a lawyer to do the trademark, and it was a lot of money. It was a lot
Mm.
of money. So I was chatting with a friend and she was like, you can do this yourself. I said, I know, but what do I do? What if I get it wrong? So I
Hmm.
reached out to my sister. She's a lawyer, a trademark lawyer
Yeah,
in
you mentioned yes.
Yeah, so
Mm.
she's a trademark lawyer in Nigeria, and we sat down and we went through the information together. And she said, "Let's do it." It took a while, but then I just got trademark approved, and I'm like, "Yay!" So I
Yeah, I
reached
saw
out,
that
like,
on your
yeah,
Instagram handle.
and
Yeah,
I
share your Instagram
realized
handle is the Cake Isle Inc. or
cake house
what's
on the score chin chin.
okay, Cake Isle on the
Core
chin
chin
chin. Okay,
chin. Yeah, and I
yes.
remember I reached out to the graphic designer. I said, "We can update our packaging now. You can change the TM to R. We're registered. We're approved." And she was
Yeah,
because I've worked with the same graphic designer since we started. The
awesome,
same
awesome.
one, yes. And every time she's like, "What's going on? What's happening with Chin Chin?" Because she didn't. She's Canadian, and when we reached out to her to design this, she had never heard of the product before. And one of the things we said to her was that we wanted a packaging that we didn't want anything too ethnic. We didn't want anything to scream Africa, but at the same time, we didn't want to lose the origin of it. So we
Yep.
wanted something that would stand out and still
Mm-hmm.
blend in the Canadian markets. And she
Sure.
eventually she nailed it. I have to say she did.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful
She nailed
packaging.
it. Yeah, she
It's
nailed
a
it.
beautiful packaging.
Mhm.
You've talked also about setting the standard, prove them wrong, wherever country you're from, be it Europe, be it
Yeah,
Africa, be it the US. Um, I just did a little research now that more than 8.5 million people as of 2021 have immigrated um, to Canada. There's so many people, you know, that have immigrated to this country. And Canada right now represents a melting pot of different cultures. So wherever you come from, particularly you're from Nigeria,
Yeah.
change the narrative. Yes, they may get a bad rep, but you are a different Nigerian. To set the standard in whatever you're doing, and just follow the steps, follow the ropes. don't
Follow the rules. Yeah.
don't
Follow
cut
the rules.
corners. Do whatever is necessary. It's going to help you in the future.
Yeah.
We also talked about getting a mentor. How did you get a mentor? Because that's one of the things
So
this
my
business
mentor,
is all
my
about
mentor
too.
at the time,
Mhm.
his wife, I met his wife actually at a network event, and she saw the changing and she was like, okay, I think maybe my husband might be able to, help you with this. And he kind of talked me through the pricing, what to expect. And it was like, you've really done well. We didn't, I would say at this point in time, at that time we're trying to get into retail, we're trying to get into the Sobeys and the Co-ops, but
Mhm.
my focus has shifted from that. I've just kind of left it
Yeah,
alone. I've just kind of left it alone for now, and
sure.
if it will happen, if it happens,
Happens.
I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Mhm.
Just kind of moved on from there. So
So
he
you're
was very
going to
helpful.
be now business to business rather than business to consumers.
Sorry, say that again.
I said you're trying to go business to business, the market more to airlines and market more to other businesses versus selling retail.
Um, I don't know. I think right now I'm still fully on selling to consumers directly.
Okay, directly
Because like
versus
I
social
said, that
media.
has kept me here. So I
Yes.
don't want to deviate from that. And there's nothing wrong in expanding. I'm still looking into the other things. But what
Hmm.
I have kind of noticed in the last couple of years, and that's what I tell my mentees, is there's nothing wrong in running after those things or those companies. But I've kind of noticed that just keep building,
Yep.
just keep building. The right person will notice. There's nothing wrong with reaching for the stars or trying to, achieve greater heights. But I've
Hmm.
just kind of noticed that just keep at it, keep building, be diligent in what you do. I believe strongly in the Bible verse that says, show me a man who is diligent in his craft. He will not stand before men, he will stand before kings. I really do believe in that. So I believe strongly in just doing the right thing, even when no one is watching.
Watching.
And
Yep.
what I mean by that is when no one is there, what ingredients do you use when no one is watching? I
Yep.
believe in that. So I just think it's important. Just keep building. That's what I tell them. Just keep
Sure.
building. Really.
Sure.
Just
Sure.
keep building.
That's a very good advice. That's a very good advice. Let's see if I have any other question. Okay. So what advice would you give? I mean, like, final advice would you give for anyone looking to start their business? Now, your business are product businesses. Um, of course, you have had a lot of positive and some negative experiences in the past. Like, what advice would you give in this post-COVID period? Especially people that work in 9 to 5. You know, do you recommend starting slowly? Like, what would you do differently if you had to do it all
Sometimes
over
there are
again?
days I still think of a 9 to 5, I'll be honest. I do
Mm.
wonder because I've never had that. So that's something, and maybe I just need to get it out of my system. I don't know. I don't know who's going to employ me at 45. So good luck with that. But
Oh, it can happen.
maybe I
Remember
just
the
really
networking
need.
event we had a lady that had been an entrepreneur for more than 13 years, and she went into 9 to 5.
I
So
know. Maybe I just need
where
to.
the trend is, 9 to 5 to running a business, but people also move from running a business to 9 to 5. So it's still, if you
Yeah.
put the structures, the right processes in place for your business, it will run itself, and you can
So
still do things.
that's the thing when you talk about putting the right structure in place, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's where we get it wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
think our idea of success sometimes is high heels, nice office, laptop bag, and not necessarily, I'm still very much in production. Every Friday, I'm there with them.
Yeah. Mm.
The reason for that is because I do get people who say, "Oh, you look tired. Or, what happened? You were frying chinchin now. Wow, why are you suffering yourself?" I do get condescending comments like that. I do, and initially, it used to get to me. It used to get to me, and I was actively looking for someone. But then it actually occurred to me that
Mm.
quality is very important to me.
Important. Yes.
Very important to me. So the reason why you can eat one batch of chin chin today and eat another batch next month and it's still the same is because A, we have a recipe, and two, we
Mm.
have a process in place. So the question is,
Quality.
are
Ensuring.
we are we at that point yet where I can say I don't have to be there and I know, you know, every step is going to be like I was there? No, I
Mm.
can't
Not
say that.
yet. Mm-hmm.
Say that we're not there yet. I don't know. Yeah, maybe some stations, yes, because we have like one, two, three stations, in a typical production where the mixing is done, where the cutting is done, where the frying is done. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe one station, maybe the rolling and the cutting station. Yes, I'm actually not there anymore. I don't have to be there. But then, can I leave the mixing to someone else? Even if can I not be there and they start mixing? Because if you do use just one more cup of milk than you should, it affects the texture. And then when you go to sheet it, there's a problem. And then when you go to cut it, there's a problem. So, how do I know that the next person is going to understand that what you do here can affect the other two stations?
Sure.
So, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I think that's where I do want to get to that point because that's the way you can grow. I have so many things I want to do with Cake Hour because I'm still very much into production, but I'm not in a hurry to walk away from that just yet
Just yet.
because I understand that that is the lifeblood of the business. I do
Sure.
understand that, and I'm thankful I actually got that understanding on time because, yeah, I'll be honest, the digs got to me. Yeah, I still here. How much changing have you sold today? So I get, we are looking tired. You were frying chicken
I
all
know.
night.
Yeah.
Just get, in fact,
Sure.
I actually have a mark here from last week Friday from
Oh.
production. Yes, I do have a bond here. I do. So I see things like that, and my daughter is like, she feels bad when she sees them.
Mm.
I think I was just looking away. I was talking to another staff trying to show her what to do, and I went too close to the basket, and now we have that here.
Mm.
So, but even with all of this, I'm still not in a hurry to walk away from that just yet. I
Sure.
think
You have
because
to be ready. I think that when you get to that
I don't
point,
think
you,
we are there yet. Yes,
yes,
I don't, and
you
that's
know,
the mistake. That's another mistake people make.
make the jump.
To
Yeah. Yeah.
walk away from the nitty gritty of the business.
Mhm. Sure.
And when I mentor people, that's another thing that comes up. They talk
Mhm.
about break even point. So any business person will probably tell you before you start your business,
Mhm.
what's the word they use? Study your competitors. Yeah,
Yeah.
study your competitors, and try and go for their customers and go below their pricing. So I don't believe that the KCAL has any competitors. I don't believe we don't
Yeah.
compete.
I don't believe yet too. I have not
I
seen
don't believe
somebody.
in competition.
Yeah.
I tell them, I said the time you're going to spend trying to study that company, put that energy into creating your product. So I don't have that competitors mindset. I truly don't. So when people ask me, so who are your competitors? I'm like, we don't KCAL doesn't have any because we don't compete, we create. That's what we do. Don't compete, create,
Sure.
And they
Sure.
talk about the break even point that if you haven't broken even in 2 years or 1 year, close your business down. We are in year
Sure.
7.
Sure.
Have we
Sure.
broken even? So what's the understanding of break even, where your outgoing and your incoming is pretty much the same, right? Are we
Mhm.
there yet? No.
Sure.
What
Sure.
is the revenue growing? Yes. So there's a difference in revenue and profit. And that's why I tell them, focus on your revenue. Is it growing? Is there a steady? It doesn't have to be a huge leap, but is it growing? If it's growing, then yeah, you're
Sure.
good. So
My background is in marketing, so I'm a student of marketing. I'm a student branding and targeting, the 4 Ps and all of that. I think that in running businesses, especially in very interesting times that we have, um, yes, they're quite important. I mean, because when you look at your competitors, when you first of all look at the customers, everybody is fighting for a share of the customer's money. So if I do not buy bread, I would use the money that I was going to use to buy bread to buy chin chin. So yes, in that light, you can look at it that way. But like you said, I will have to agree with what you're saying, that sometimes you need to focus on what you're doing in your business and try to push for excellence, continue to do what you're doing well.
Yeah.
I think the 4 Ps, those are usually applicable when your business gets to a certain point in its business growth. I think as you grow bigger, but with small businesses, it's kind of quite interesting. I also run several businesses. You have to you have to look at it. I mean, if some things are available, if funding is not a big issue, and you're still happy where you are in terms of like you're able to still be a mother, a devoted mother, and do other things and still run this business, just keep doing what you're doing, keep building the business, keep doing it.
Business
I
just
mean, maybe the next thing is someone is going to say, we want to buy Elora up out now. We
that's
want to.
the thing though. That's the thing though. So do we sell? Do we
Do
sell?
you
Because
do
do we
you
sell?
sell?
Someone comes to say they want to buy cake or they want to buy Laura Beauty. Do I sell? If I sell, it does.
It's
It's
a
no longer.
very interesting question because
There's a
a
lot
lot
of
of
controversy
family
on that,
business,
right?
yes, a lot of family businesses, they don't want to sell their business, especially in Africa. But people are now like, you build it up to a certain point and you have bidders, like high bidders willing to buy your business. So it's possible. It depends. It depends on, at that point, it depends on the offer. It depends on the point you are in life. And if your children don't want to take it up, people sell their
I
businesses,
know.
particularly in America. People sell their businesses for millions,
Take it up, yeah.
so exactly. So um anyway, so I think those are, I'm not sure if I cut you off, but
No, that's
we have,
fine.
yes, we have learned a lot today in running a business in Canada. Yes, you can run your business in Canada. um there are guidelines to setting your business. The first step is registering your business, making sure that you follow all the guidelines to be approved or certified. um, get yourself a mentor, and that you can get by networking. Also, by networking, you can learn a lot of other things too. You can meet more people. You can, get the motivation and support you need. Um, Also, you also talked about setting the standard. We have talked about that earlier. Set the standard, be the different person. Do not cut corners. And then also, one lesson Eugenia learned: pay yourself,
So,
so that declare your income so that you can get funding,
yeah.
right? Even as a nonprofit, I hear we can get funding, but it's not just Job and Business Network that we do. I also run other businesses as well. And people have talked about, well, the end goal is for you to get funding to do more things. But for right now, I'm just taking one step at a time. And hopefully at that point, we would come to that. And then, of course, we also learned about
Yeah.
trademarking your products, as she was finding her logos somewhere else, or and so she had to trademark that, and she was able to do that in um in a cost effective manner as well. I
Mhm.
think that's the nice thing about Canada. There's so many guidelines there. You do not have to necessarily
Yeah.
get a lawyer to do everything. If you can do it on your own, you have to read the
Yeah.
instructions and follow the paperwork. And
Yeah.
usually there's somebody in government that can guide you through that. Then
Yeah.
go ahead and do that. You can save costs. Like for a nonprofit, I only registered it. I did all the paperwork. I got
Mhm.
directors, and I paid like $75 or something like that, as opposed to $600. Then I would also say that if you're working 9 to 5, make sure you ask your employer or
Yeah.
um, disclose if you're as I think as long as you disclose it that you have a job on the side, so there isn't any conflict of interest, then make sure you do that. And then finally, well, just before the final thought, keep building. Just be diligent. Be diligent in what you're doing. Keep doing it. Eventually, someone will say to you, I know people that they want to run their business, but they don't want to do it alone. So right off the bat, they start with partnership. They get someone who is of a like mind, of a like mind as they are, and they partner together. So be diligent in whatever you're doing. It's possible. Yes, you can run your business. Um, um, you can do a sole proprietorship, you can do a partnership, or you can join forces with other people. And then don't walk away from the nitty gritty of the business. Like, do not be in a hurry to let the business go because you're looking for 9 to 5. Just keep
Yeah.
doing it. Don't give up. Don't give up. I think at the end of the day, it's going to pay off.
Even I
Um,
think so too. I
yes.
think so too. Yeah.
So that is the end of this speaker session.